Have you ever told your team to use common sense when dealing with a tough resident, only to have a simple issue escalate into a fair housing complaint? Welcome back to the Fair Housing Insiders, the show where we break down compliance and operational challenges in property management. Today, we're shifting our focus slightly to a topic as foundational to preventing those very challenges: exceptional customer service. You might think customer service is just about being nice, but as we'll discuss, it's a critical compliance tool. If you manage or own your property, this conversation is absolutely essential. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our deep dives into protecting your assets and your residents. Today, we're asking, why is it vital to develop your team's customer service skills instead of just chalking it up to common sense? And how does this directly impact your liability under the Fair Housing Act? Joining me is a true expert, Donna Cutting, founder and CEO of Red Carpet Learning Worldwide, and the author of 3 books, including the fantastic Employees First: Inspire, Engage, and Focus on the Heart of Your Organization. Donna's customer service training programs are used across the globe, helping organizations achieve results like improved service scores and increased employee retention. Donna, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Michael. I'm always happy to have a conversation about how preparing your team to deliver excellent service can help prevent problems in the future.
Absolutely. And this is a topic near and dear to my heart. Before I was in the fair housing industry, a lot of my jobs involved mostly customer service. So I took that very seriously in my previous roles. And we definitely see those issues throughout the fair housing, throughout the industry involved with fair housing complaints, how one little issue spirals into a formal complaint. And those arise because a team member may not inherently know how to handle what they perceive as a difficult person or a sensitive situation. Donna, from your perspective and your experience, what's the core disconnect here with those employees?
Well, I think you said it earlier. The core disconnect is the phrase common sense. I hear this all the time. Leaders saying, why can't they do it? It's just common sense. But the truth is, people grow up in different families, in different areas, in different generations. And so what's common sense to you may not be common sense to somebody else. And I could go on and on and on about why that is. But really what needs to happen in order to prevent problems, discrimination claims, those kinds of things, is for leaders to drop the idea of it's common sense and to really fully prepare their team members to deliver better service.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And we always have to remember that no matter what, we're talking about people here. And people can have bad days and they can make mistakes. And it's training that allows them to reinforce and fall back on those principles. Like if I'm having a bad day and I'm dealing with a tough customer, it's going to be hard to naturally figure my way out of the situation. But if I've had lots of training, if I've gone over this and over this with my team and my supervisors, I can kind of let my emotions maybe take a back seat for a second and then rely on that training and how it applies. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so let's take an example, like when a resident makes a request for a companion animal, a team member who just simply says, no, we don't allow pets without understanding the accommodation process has created a potential violation. And that team member maybe needed to have developed their customer service skills, but also they need to understand how to respond appropriately with empathy when people bring up these fair housing situations.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the key is, I think, we have this idea that the customer is always right, but the truth is the customer isn't always right. And sometimes we have to be the messenger of no, right? And so, as you said earlier, it's training. Really, I like to think of it as skills development and skills practice. So giving people a chance to practice that skill of saying no. And we use a model at Red Carpet Learning that has seemed to be helpful for people, and we call it treat
Yes.
customers to red carpet service. So treat is tune in and listen. Don't just jump in with the no. Listen for the why. Listen quietly, right, with your mouth
Mhm.
closed. Respond with empathy and regret if necessary. So empathy, putting yourself in their shoes, understanding, of course, I would want to have my pet here as well, right? Or whatever it is. Respond with empathy so people feel validated and heard. Then you move to E, which is explore solutions and come to some sort of an agreement. So again, what are the choices that are available? What are the solutions that you can come up with? Even if the answer to the initial question is no, you are giving it some time, you're giving them some choices, some options. And then add a little extra. So once you've come to some sort of an agreement, what's that little thing that you can do, even if it's a follow-up call, a thank you note, or just a little, it's like the free dessert, right? After your meal came out incorrect,
Mhm.
right? And then finally, thank the customer. So whether it's a resident, family member, whoever that is, say thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to work through this with you. But it's not just the framework, it's the practicing of that framework that is
Yeah.
going to make a difference.
Absolutely. I especially appreciated the E in that, the exploring solutions, because it's a really pivotal cornerstone of fair housing, the interactive process. And that's about when we talk about a disability and request for a reasonable accommodation. And you may not be able to deliver on exactly what the resident wants. But
Right.
through engaging in that interactive process, you can maybe find a practical solution that will solve the issue for the resident while still respecting the housing program that you want to run. Um, and I just appreciate you sharing that treat model with us. I think that's really incredible.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. And really, when you think about it, because if you don't deliver, if your team members do not know how to have those conversations gracefully,
Mhm.
that can turn into a complaint, and that can turn into a fair housing and discrimination complaint, depending on the issue. And so, really, when you think about your investment in customer service, it's an investment in not just soft skills, but hard results and including risk mitigation.
Yeah, absolutely. In the end, all of this does tie back to your bottom line. I
Mhm.
appreciated your example as well, talking about like experiences in restaurants, because I think that's something that we all really easily can kind of tie our customer service experiences to is the hospitality industry. Um, I certainly have had my fair share of good and bad experiences in a restaurant, but I can tell you certainly that when I'm in a restaurant and I feel like I'm experiencing a not good service from the waiters, the staff, and then they get my order wrong as well, and they don't seem too keen on fixing it, that maybe starts to feel a little bit personal, or maybe this just operation isn't good in general. However, I've certainly had fantastic service experiences in restaurants, and they've still gotten my order wrong. But because of the way they responded, because of the way they treated me, I'm like, okay, this was simply a mistake. And it's a mistake that I can look past because I feel confident they're going to remedy it. And this is certainly ties directly into housing. If a resident is having positive experiences all the time and you just run into a little head with a reasonable accommodation request, a parking issue, an animal issue, if everything they've seen up until that moment has been very positive, then they're more likely going to look, okay, this is a mistake. And I have confidence that they're going to be able to get through it. If everything they have experienced has been negative and off-putting and bad service and communication, that's going to start to feel personal. And once something becomes personal, it can start to look like discrimination. And remember, it doesn't have to be discriminatory. Just the perception of discrimination is
Exactly.
enough to allow a fair housing complaint, and obviously just bad from an operational perspective.
Exactly,
Mhm.
Michael. And I think about if you're in that restaurant, if you have a dirty fork, but
Mhm.
your meal comes out and it's great and your server is on time and your server is friendly and you've built relationships, you're not going to complain that much about the dirty fork. But if your team members aren't building the relationship, if the meal's not great, then all of a sudden that dirty fork becomes a really big issue. So It's really about helping your team members build relationships with your customers, with your residents, so that every little thing, little disagreement, little no, or complaint doesn't turn into a really big thing.
Absolutely. So this is an investment in soft skills and risk mitigation, just like you said. And it's important to remember that that investing time in employee training, especially customer service, actually does increase employee retention. And that
Oh, yeah.
saves you money on top of obviously avoiding fair housing issues. All of this saves you time and money. You just need to invest a little bit of the time on the front end to make sure that they have those skills.
That's right.
So, Donna, before we wrap up, let's focus on the Fair Housing Act specifically. We talked about being professional, being empathetic, and engaging. I just want you to kind of give us your final thoughts on how important this is and how much you believe and you've seen it's changed your clients' business models.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. You've been saying this all along.
Mhm.
Soft skills
Mhm.
has hard results,
Yeah.
and a lot of those hard results are, keeping yourself safe from, um, risk,
Hmm.
from lawsuits,
Hmm.
from all of the things the great work that you do at the Fair Housing Institute. But it starts with preparing your team to, like I said, build those relationships with your residents.
Absolutely. So if you're sitting down listening today, maybe it's time to have a conversation with your supervisors, with your team about how you can implement the treat model or something similar to it in your customer service policies and practices and go over it again and again and again. This stuff isn't a one and done. You're going to have to revisit this again to make sure everybody is on top of it. Donna, thank you so much for this reminder
Thank
about
you.
how training and compliance is just a cornerstone of their operations. It's people skills, and that's what this industry is about in the end. It's people. So thanks again so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, Michael.
Absolutely. And thank you so much to your audience for watching. If this episode helped you understand the intersection of customer service and fair housing compliance, please like this video, share it with your colleagues. Don't forget to subscribe to the Fair Housing Insiders for essential industry knowledge, and check us out wherever you get your podcasts so you can listen to us on your ride home. We'll see you next time on the Fair Housing Insiders. Happy training.